Hi everyone, I'm Miss Lydia from the Boston Library. Thank you so much for joining me. It is a cold and snowy day here in the Boston Hills, but it is May and Mother's Day is this Sunday. We all know it's a little challenging to go shopping right now, so I'm here to show you some easy, simple, homemade gifts for mom. Our first project for the day is a Mother's Day card. I've chosen to do a handprint flower pot as our project. You're going to need a piece of cardstock or any piece of white paper to start with to make the card. We need a piece of green paper and then a contrasting color. So I have my blue paper here. On our green piece of paper, what we're going to do is trace our hand. So I'm going to place my hand right down on my paper and I'm going to trace it out. This is going to be the base of our plant on our card. So once I've finished tracing that, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. This is a great project to do with kids of any age. They're just going to need a variety of different levels of help depending on the age group that you're making this project with. Of course, my handprint flower is going to be a little bigger than a lot of yours. We'll start with this here. You're going to want to leave a little bit of extra on the bottom of the handprint. So once I'm done cutting out my hand, I have this, and that is going to be glued down right into the center of my cardstock. So I'm going to take my glue stick, turn my handprint over, and I'm going to make sure I get lots of glue down on that so that it stays on there solidly. Going to glue it down about there. I want to make sure I still have room for my flowers on top too. Then in my contrasting piece of paper color, I have cut out two flower pot shapes. So they're identical. You want to make sure that they're going to be big enough to cover the base of your handprint. And it doesn't have to be really exact, so it's not like you need to use a template, just something that looks like a flower pot. You do want them to be exactly the same because they're going to overlap. So on the bottom one, I've written Happy Mother's Day. That's going to be the one that goes on the bottom. So I'm going to glue all of the back of this one. And I'm going to stick that down at the base of my plant. So I end up with something that looks like that. Then I'm going to take my extra pot and I'm just going to glue along this top line here. So I get a lot of glue along that top line there, and then I'm going to line it up and stick it over the top. And then I'm just going to create a little bit of a fold in that. So now I have two pieces, and you can see that you're going to then flip that up and it says Happy Mother's Day, or whatever message you want to write on that underneath. Now, we have a nice plant, but we don't have any flowers yet. So in order to create flowers, there are a couple of different options that you can use. You can, of course, cut out construction paper flowers and glue those on. If you have paints and you want to get a little bit messy, you can use your finger and you can do a little fingerprint flower. Just go around in a circle like that. I happen to have a lot of buttons on hand, so I'm going to use some buttons and gems to make my flowers. So I'm going to look through my bin of buttons and I'm going to find some centers. I like to make the centers of my flowers yellow, so I'll go ahead and start to glue those on and then decide what colors I want my petals to be. So I might make a pink flower, and then I might make a purple one, and maybe a red one. They don't all have to be the same color, whatever you feel like doing. And I will take some time to glue those on. If you have hot glue, that's going to work best if you're using buttons, but of course you want to be careful not to burn yourself with that. But any type of glue will work, you just have to be more patient for the other stuff to dry. So now I've gone through and I have finished gluing on my buttons. So this is our finished card here. You can see I have my yellow centers, and then depending on the size of my buttons, that's going to be kind of how I base the number of petals for each flower. So I've glued those all down with hot glue, and then you can see I have my little flip up Happy Mother's Day message on the inside. You have lots of options with how you create your flowers. You can use finger paints, you can use construction paper, you can use sequins, basically whatever you have on hand to create those flowers. If you have any questions on that, let me know. Our next project is going to be a simple sugar scrub for Mom. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make a simple sugar scrub with ingredients that you have on hand at home, hopefully. It's a fairly flexible recipe, so you can use any type of sugar that you have. I have simple table sugar right here. You can also use brown sugar. It's a little bit less abrasive when you're using it, or you can use raw sugar as well. And you can use a variety of different oils. Olive oil is easy because it's usually something that you have on hand. You can also use coconut oil. If you're using coconut oil, you will have to warm it up before you measure it because it is typically in that solid form. So I have a cup of sugar here, and then I've measured out my olive oil. I have about 4 tablespoons here to start. The recipes that you find online kind of vary, so it's a little bit of trial and error, but what I'm going to do is mix that in, pour that in. And it's easy to add more. You can't take it back out once you've added it. So then I'm going to slowly stir up my mixture. You want it to be kind of sandy, so you don't want it to get too soupy. That's why it's always easier to add a little bit more oil as you go and not start out with too much. Then you can use any variety of essential oils if you have them on hand. You don't need those. This is completely usable in the form that it's in now. But if you want to make it smell nice and you have some essential oils on hand that are safe to use on your skin, you can add a few drops of that. So I'm just going to continue to mix this all up. And it's looking a tiny bit dry, so I might go ahead and add just a little bit more oil. So I've gone ahead and added a little bit of extra oil and got that all mixed in. About another 2 tablespoons was what it took for my sugar here for my cup. So that was a total of about 4 tablespoons of oil to 1 cup of sugar. And then I have a little bit of grapefruit extract on hand, so I'm just going to add, and you only need a drop or 2 of this. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to mix that up very carefully so that that gets thoroughly incorporated into the rest of the mixture. And then if you happen to have a nice decorative jar, you can always put it into that for a better presentation. If not, you can store it in any kind of an airtight container. It'll last for about a month. You can use it when you're washing your hands. After you're done washing your hands, it's a really good scrub. You can use it in the shower. You can also use it in the bath. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you had fun creating projects for Mom. Happy Mother's Day, and we look forward to seeing you again next week for our next project.